Hello and welcome to British 4D Designs. I am Aidan. We are 4D, you are 4D. This is a tutorial for Cinema 4D, a graphic design program for 3D rendering and animation. Quite recently I've been pondering around the internet looking at forums in relation to Cinema 4D, and I've noticed a large amount of questions of threads relating on how to make specific objects emit light. Well, if you're looking for that, then this is the tutorial for you. Here we go. So let's go have a look at this example. Now you can see how all I've done is I've made like a little North Pole thing with a light on top, okay, and this object here is the one that's emitting the light. Now ignore this light here for a second, I'll explain that in a minute. The intensity is down if you think I'm cheating. So let's go ahead and render this. Now you can see this this sort of funky texture around it. I think it's pretty cool, to be fair, but it actually shows you the density of where the light is. The further out the dots are away from each other, the less dense it'll be. So if you look around here, it's a lot brighter than it would be over here, obviously because it's near the source. Okay, so now the process of this is quite simple, to be fair. So this is material here, which is the light on top. Now colour, set your colour to whatever colour you want. Okay, so let's have a red light, for example. Now you won't be able to see it, okay, but it'll be there. That's what will change colour when you render. Okay, so go to luminance as well. I'll bring that up about a red. Okay, now you'll notice my brightness is actually higher than 100%, but if we had it 100% and then we went ahead and rendered it, you'll notice it's not that bright at all. See, it's not that bright. So if we go back into his texture again, and then we bring up our brightness, let's say 200 odd again, okay, render that again, different story. Nice and bright, scary red North Pole light. Okay, so that looks pretty decent. Now this will only work if you have your render settings set to this. Now ambient occlusion and global illumination. Global illumination is the most important one here, okay? But we'll go through ambient occlusion. Ambient occlusion, I set my minimum ray length to about 30 odd centimeters, okay? Whereas my maximum ray length, I set that to quite far, because the maximum ray length, that's how far it'll try and spread to. And if it goes any further than that, then it'll tend to like almost gradient out into nothing, okay? And my contrast here, this is quite important because this defines how fine the light is and how essentially how sharp it'll be. Okay. Now, global illumination, my global illumination mode, I always set mine to IR or QMC, still image, because, well, it depends on what you're doing really. If you're doing an animation, then you'd obviously set it to camera animation or IR camera animation, right? But I set mine to IR plus QMC, still image. It makes it more sharper, it makes it look pretty good. I also changed my primary intensity. Again, it's how sharp it looks and how bright it is. Whereas gamma, well, we all know what gamma does when we turn that up on screen. It makes all the colours go all dodgy, essentially. Okay, so I just set that as 1, keep it as 1. Okay, now obviously we save files. We all know how to do this, well we should do anyway. Still image, just the current frame, keep it on 0, whatnot. My screen resolution. Yeah, that's essentially the basics of that. So we rendered that. It's quite nice when it renders. Fairly straightforward. Now we'll go ahead and we'll make like a custom one, just so I can run you through the process of on how I do it. So let's get a plane. Enlarge this thing out a little bit. Alright. Now what we will do is we will make, I'll just prove you can do it with any object. Okay, so we'll do a pyramid. Alright, a luminescent pyramid. Quite bizarre, but whatever. Okay, obviously straight away nothing. It's extremely boring. Okay, colour. What colour should we have it? I think my favourite colour, green. Okay, and bring luminance on. Don't forget we need to higher that up. Right, green. and as brightness around about 200 odd %. Okay, now drag that onto there. Now what I like to do is I like to make my floor quite a grey or a darker colour than the original, because then it'll stand out more than it originally would. So that's that basic bit. We've got render settings now. Change the screen, my resolution. What made me laugh was when I went to screen, you can actually change it to 4K, because they've just brought out monitors for 4K and stuff, and 4K cameras. It's quite interesting, really. Now, go to save. Oh, shove this on my desktop. Example 1. Okay. Now, TIFF. I always save mine as TIFF because it's a high quality image, and I can put it straight into Photoshop if I need to. But if you're just gonna, like, say for example, oh, okay, I've just made this and now I want to shove it on Facebook, then I'd save it as a JPEG. But because TIFF is such a high quality image, I generally just save it as a TIFF. Okay, done it. Go to multipass, anti-aliasing. Can never pronounce that. That's like your reflections. Don't really need that. Now options. I forgot to mention this actually. I apologise. Options. You have to turn off default light, or it won't work. Okay, just remember that default light has to be off. Default light essentially is when, if we were to render that now, we'd only see that because it's got the luminance on. But if we hide that image and we bring in another one, we won't see it because we haven't got its default light on. We turn its default light on, we can see it. Okay. Now, goodbye cube. Hello pyramid. Right. Effects, or effect, ambient occlusion, and global illumination. Okay. Now, ambient occlusion. I'd only change my minimum ray length up a little bit if it was off of the floor. If that makes sense, it should be a little bit higher than what it normally would on the default 0 if it's off of the floor. Now, maximum ray length, I normally take that up to around about 500 if I'm making a really bright object. Okay. Now contrast, let's say 32%. Make it nice, bright and crisp. Global illumination, making a still image, so IRQMC. Primary intensity, a little bit up, say it's 200, we'll put it the same. 200 and whatever. Gamma, don't want to touch that. Now these bits, actually, just for interesting purposes, this is the quality of your rendering. Now, some people, if you have a less able PC, I recommend you set them both to low, both the stochastic samples and the record density. If you set them to low, it should render really fast when you're previewing. But for the best results, I'd set it to medium when you're about to render. So we'll close that and we'll take a render, see what this looks like. Interesting. Now I like to set my my ambient occlusion on because I like the effect that it gives around the edge. That's just me purposely. I don't think you have to have it on. I guess we could tick it off and we can experiment. Render that. Still seems to work. Just it defines the edge where you can see it. That's why I like to have it on. So it gives it more of a realistic look, if you like. Like it's like the pyramid itself is transparent and there's a light on the inside. That's why I like to have ambient occlusion on, because it looks quite nice and more defined. Very nice. Okay. Now, any other questions or any other queries you'd like me to do, or any other examples, just put a comment in the comment box below, and don't be afraid to give us a like and subscribe. Okay, thank you very much. Goodbye. We are 4D. You are 4D.